Hey, welcome to the 14th or 15th installment of HW Works Alumni at event. I see John just signed in right at the nick of time. What's happening, John? That
How are
that's
you?
that's that punctuality, that HW punctuality, and Lauren jumped right in as well. Perfect,
Exactly.
perfect. We're gonna go for about 45 minutes. Um, there may there probably won't be too many question and answers. But again, this is available for recording, and we have obviously your HW Works profiles that our students will be able to reach out on. And we're probably going to have them go to your LinkedIn also, John and Lauren. So you can expect it from that way. So we've got, uh, like I said, about 44 minutes. So hopefully we'll cover everything Dartmouth, one of the most popular schools when it comes to HW students, and of course amongst parents who will be obviously the aim of this crowd as well. They're usually a bunch of parents um, that are interested, that'll consult with this. So hopefully we'll be able to get provide some information and then also give you an opportunity. I think it's good to do a little rah rah Dartmouth also, right? That always works. But before we begin, first I guess Jack and Lauren, I'll have you introduce yourselves. And then I have a question that's not even on the list of questions that I gave you. So I'm going to throw your curveball out the bat. But so you guys can, but you first start with your intro. Either one of you can begin.
Sure, I can take this one. First of all, thank you for having me. Just for a quick intro, my name is Lauren. I graduated Harvard Westlake in 2020, which is an obviously unfortunate year to graduate with COVID and everything. But I chose to participate today because I'm a very recent grad of Dartmouth. I'm class of 2024. And I guess was just reflecting on my experience, and I feel really grateful that I got to go there. It was like I don't have enough good things to say about it. And it's such a special place. But yeah, just a quick heads up because you just mentioned it. My LinkedIn is being kind of weird right now, and I don't have access to it. But and I'm double checking that my works profile is up. But hopefully that should be good to go after today.
Okay. Absolutely. Deborah, awesome. Well, so we're going to be able to get your perspective as well. This is great. Oh, this is amazing. Sometimes we back into these things. Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can guys probably can see based on my Zoom name. Technically, my name's John Coleman. So my LinkedIn, all of that, you look me up in the Dartmouth directory. I'm not sure you're able to access that, but if you do, it's John Coleman. But I go by Jack. So everyone, who may remember me from Harvard Westlake, I think we're getting a little bit far now, but I graduated in 2022, and I figured I'd do this one because I love HW. And I remember how stressful the college admissions process was. And I think it can be nice to do these Zooms, to talk to people, and to kind of just realize like you get through it. There are HW alums who are on the other side of the process and who are alive and who are very happy with where they ended up. And that's at all schools. And then, I also love Dartmouth, so I'm always excited to share about Dartmouth. So I graduated in 2022. I'm currently a junior. So I'm actually currently in London on a Dartmouth study abroad. So it's a little bit later here. I think it's 11:15, just about that time. But happy to answer any questions, kind of running the gamut on the Dartmouth experience. So from admissions to where I am now. I haven't graduated, so I can't talk about post grad stuff. But up until that, otherwise I'll hand that off to Lauren.
Sure, absolutely. And this is ideal. And you all have kind of sort of already answered it. And I guess Deborah, since you kind of sort of volunteered your background, I guess throughout the conversation, feel free if you can provide, perspective from a parent who's going through the application process and kind of sort of like Jack said, saw it through the other end because a lot of these calls do have to a lot of our parents, right, who want to know what it's like. But for Lauren and John, like you kind of sort of answered it already, but I really want to know. It always baffles me, right? You're in London, John. Like Lauren, you just graduated. I know you're busy, whether you're employed or you're looking. Um, why did you do this today? Right? Like you could be doing anything. You have a bunch of stuff that you could be doing. Like, why did you do this today?
Yeah, well, as I said, I love Dartmouth. I love Harvard Westlake, and this is the perfect opportunity to connect the two. So I'm always happy to do that. But I do think, also as I said before, for me, the college process was pretty recent. Um, and kind of I'll be walking through on campus at Dartmouth if anyone's been. If you haven't been and you know, you have the means to go, I highly recommend it. It's a great campus. Um, but oftentimes I'm walking through Dartmouth and I'll look around and I'm stunned that it's, already been 2 or 3 years since I got into Dartmouth, and the whole admissions process. But I remember very much what that was like. So hopefully in some way I can help today to provide some clarity or at least a little bit of reassurance that it's all going to be fine to a process that I know, especially at Harvard Westlake, can be can feel like it's not going to be fine for a long time. So don't want to scare you guys. If you do feel like it's fine, that's great. Keep thinking that. But if you don't, you'll be fine.
Awesome. Lauren?
Yeah, I guess a little bit on the flip side now that I'm removed from the admissions process for a bit, that kind of took me back. I forgot how stressful it was, but it certainly was. Um, but yeah, I already said this just to reiterate, like as the reason why so fast, but it was honestly like probably the 4 best years of my life. I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I really did not know anything about Dartmouth when I applied. I applied regular, just kind of, cast a wide net. Um, and I think had I known what I now know, having gone, it probably would have piqued my interest like more. Obviously, I was super excited about, but I really just didn't know much aside from it credentials, the basic information. Um, so yeah, if there's just hoping to share some more information about it. I know that some people, at least me personally, I wasn't sure how I felt about a small school that was pretty rural coming from, growing up in LA. So yeah, just hoping to be able to answer anyone's questions.
And that's really kind of a perfect lead in, Lauren. Thank you to the first question. And I guess this gives both give us your mindset going in, and then if that influenced your choice for Dartmouth, right? What was the school or the major um that you had at Dartmouth, and why was Dartmouth the right choice if you knew it going in, or if you didn't know it going in, why was Dartmouth the right choice when you chose the major when you were at Dartmouth? So hopefully that was clear. You got the gist of it, and either one of you can start.
Yeah, I can segue into this. So, like I said, I really did not know much about Dartmouth going in. I honestly thought that I would want to be in a city for school. But I ended up picking Dartmouth. And I'm so glad I ended up there. I think that, especially coming from LA, now I live in New York, so another big city, it's honestly some of the only times I think you have to live in like a place like that as Hanover, at least for my path that I see for myself. I knew I'd probably want to be living in a city later on. And I think that because Hanover is pretty remote, um, it forces people almost to be super bought into campus. Like I think it's like there's never ending things to do on campus. It's so fun. People are always obviously just spending time with each other. Um, I think that people are very like work hard, play hard almost. Like the campus is just so lively all the time there because we're all forced to hang out with each other all the time. It's very easy to get to know people. People are super friendly and everyone's very bought into the campus culture. Um, and I think some other reasons why I love Dartmouth. Academically, I think it prepared me well, which I know we'll be discussing a bit later. But for example, I think there wasn't a single class where the professor didn't know me personally, like, or at least on a name to face level, which I think sometimes you don't find at larger schools. And also, Hanover is just beautiful. Like, I know right now, it's so pretty in the fall. I'm going back up soon for homecoming, actually, as kind of a last hurrah. Even though I wasn't super outdoorsy going in, it's hard to not appreciate how beautiful it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo all of those sentiments. At the same time, I applied early to Dartmouth. So I kind of knew Dartmouth was, or I thought Dartmouth was the school for me going into it. Total disclaimer, total honesty, I got deferred, and got in after that. Again, there's hope out
Those
there.
are the stories that we live for, John. That's
Yeah,
what
exactly.
we get across.
So I applied early, and I figured there were a couple of things. One, as somebody that grew up in LA, like Lauren, didn't really think I was ever going to end up in a Hanover type, little small town of 11,000 people. To be honest, 2.5 hours, three by coach, two by car. The coach, by the way, is like the Dartmouth coach, is a bus that runs pretty much every hour in between Boston and Hanover. Um, you are far away from a big city. It is not the kind of thing where it's like, oh, I've talked to kids who are like, oh, well, I'll visit every weekend. I just go to Boston on the weekend. You're like, that's not how it works. But you do really learn to love campus. I applied because I figured the academics were great. I wanted to go into government, or do a government major. What better school than to do a government major at an undergraduate focused institution in New Hampshire, which is kind of like the epitome of a government focused toss up state. Kind of, there's a ton that you can do there. Um, at the same time, one of the things that I just love now, absolutely, the outdoorsiness of campus, and also particularly to echo what Lauren said, you are, whether you like it or not, forced to revolve around Dartmouth. Your life is Dartmouth, and there's a class. I'm not sure I necessarily recommend taking it, but basically, like, is Dartmouth a cult? There is that class at Dartmouth, and I think that it has some truth to it. Everyone at Dartmouth is revolving around Dartmouth, is doing Dartmouth activities all the time, and it really does lead to a really close knit community of people that are interested in the school. And also, you kind of spend 4 years really just not in the real world. I mean, even in London, we're out here and there's all sorts of like, who's traveling, who's going on this trip, who's going to this restaurant. In Hanover, like, everyone's doing the same thing and you don't have to worry about that. And I think that's kind of a really fantastic way to spend 4 years, especially, college. There's a lot of changes happening, and it's nice to at least know that the one thing you don't have to worry about is like where you're going to spend your Saturday night.
Sure. That was awesome. And you kind of sort of talked about how, I guess, Hanover and being at Dartmouth kind of puts everybody on, the same kind of a level play field as far as what they're doing, or things of that nature. Let's talk about Hanover and Dartmouth generally, right? I always love this next question. You all are coming from LA, and particularly Harvard Westlake. It's super diverse. My first 40 years, I was born on the East Coast. The first 40 years of my life were East Coast, and it's different, right? There's a very much black, white, and everything else. And then I got to LA and Harvard Westlake, and it's like everybody else. It's a different type of diversity. Coming from LA and going east, Lauren, you're in New York now, so you're doing the LA, New York living thing, and you were at Dartmouth. Jack, you're obviously in London now, right? And you're at Dartmouth, so you all are not strangers to international, like, big city university, but you spent your time at Dartmouth. What was it like? What were your classes like? What was the day to day like when it came to diversity?
Yeah, I so uh I don't know. I think there's obviously like an interesting question of what the 28s,
Yeah.
again, little Dartmouth lore, we call each other by our class names. So I'm a 26. The freshmen are 28. I'm not entirely sure how the diversity kind of is working in the post
Mhm.
affirmative action world, to be completely honest, because I actually haven't been on campus for this year. At the same time, I have found Dartmouth to be, as diverse as you could want. It's definitely self-selective in that there is a type of kid who wants to spend 4 years in Hanover, New Hampshire. Um, at the same time, my classes, every class I've taken, there has been real diversity of opinion, for sure, diversity of perspective. I found that really, really nice. I have very rarely felt like I couldn't speak up, like I couldn't share my opinion. And in talking to a lot of my friends, people with, different political backgrounds, people with different, racial, ethnic, gender, all sorts of different backgrounds, I've found that people feel pretty accepted at Dartmouth relative to other places. I think that speaks to the community of Dartmouth as well. As for stats, I don't know, but I don't think it's something that you need to be worried about if you're applying for sure.
Yeah, I'll echo that as well. I think that everything Jack said is pretty true. I was actually curious. I took a quick look at the numbers before this, and I saw that for the 28th, they're like roughly like 50% POC and pretty even between men and women, which I feel like when I'm thinking about it, was probably close to true for my grade. I never felt that in the transition from a very metropolitan mixed pot place like LA moving to Dartmouth specifically. I never really felt like a huge jump or transition in terms of diversity. As soon as you exit Hanover, I
Mhm.
definitely felt that. Like rural New Hampshire, I'm sure you can imagine, like isn't super diverse, but as far as campus itself, yeah, didn't feel any huge gaps. I also forgot to mention earlier my major was neuroscience and minor in economics. Within classes, I always felt, as Jack said, like pretty diverse thinking. And as far as like demographics and neuroscience, it was very, very heavy in women actually, now that I think about it.
Okay.
Um, and across both majors and other classes that I took, yeah, diverse thinking, pretty diverse ethnicity. Um, and I feel like that was also reflected in terms of men and women in the staff, like a lot of the professors that I had, which was nice to have, like, especially some female role models or mentors throughout my college classes.
Okay. That's interesting. We've heard on other calls from other women in STEM that, there were still issues with as far as an imbalance in the classes that they saw. So that's interesting that you saw a really nice mix at Dartmouth in neuroscience, Lauren. Something to take note of. Okay. These are the ones that students and parents told me they like. They're definitely more of the how did you get in kind of questions, right? Um, you're after your sophomore year at Harvard Westlake and after your junior year of Harvard Westlake, those summers, right? What did you do in those summers?
Yeah, it's a good question. To be again, total disclosure, those were the COVID summers for me.
Yeah,
So there wasn't as much. I got myself a job at Jersey Mike's and
nice,
I made
good.
sandwiches for a summer.
Yes,
So that
excellent.
was way better than Subway, highly recommend. But that was my COVID summer. I think that was in between sophomore and junior year, I want to say. And then after junior year, I think uh, I had worked before for an LA County supervisor. That I did after ninth grade. I'm kind of a gov nerd, so I sent like 15 letters to like every politician I could think of in Los Angeles, and like and just like was like, hey, I know you don't take ninth graders, but if you're interested, like
Yeah.
I'd love to work for you.
Yeah.
And I got one response. So I did that for a little while as well. But to be totally honest, there was not a ton that I didn't have like a normal sophomore,
Yeah.
post sophomore, post junior year summer.
No. Thinking about the COVID years. No. Lauren?
Yeah, in all honesty, I thought that question was referring to sophomore, junior year of college, and then I had to go jog my memory, so I quickly pulled up my
I
resume.
always do for
Um,
alums. It's always like, can you remember back?
it took a while to remember. But so it looks like no, I do remember my sophomore year. After my sophomore year of high school, I did a super quick, like not abroad, but I guess like a program through Harvard Westlake to Korea. Actually, it was in Jeju. I remember it focused around leadership. I think it was a week long. So that was a short part of my summer. And then I spent a good amount of time at UCI doing a like surgical oriented program because I was pre-med back then, hence the neuroscience in school. And that was such a fun experience. And I think gave me a lot to talk about within my applications. After my junior year, I worked in a lab at UCLA, um, studying neuroscience specifically within autism, and I volunteered a lot with the special needs community. There's a few organizations, one in particular that I volunteered with pretty much from like seventh or eighth grade through my Harvard Westlake graduation. So I spent a lot of time with them over summer as well.
Very nice. Okay, so expect your questions about those, right? Uh, Question 4. Your personal statement, your Common App statement, your Dartmouth essay. Do you all remember the topics? Do you remember what you wrote about?
Yes, yes, I do. So I think I don't think there will be I have any issue sharing this because I think I'm now we're finally at the time where I've never been on campus with anyone who's still at Harvard Westlake. There are
Yeah,
people
we've had
there
no
who
issues.
were
I'm
there.
shocked.
Yeah.
You saw I prefaced it with if you care about sharing, everybody shared. It's
Yeah,
everybody, you all love helping one another out, I guess. Go ahead.
fantastic. So I ran for student senator and prefect council every single year, including head prefect. So I ran a total of 7 times and I lost 6 times. And I won senior prefect.
Yeah.
So that was my personal statement. It was that kind of story. And I guess it worked.
Yeah.
But that was kind of my focus, and I wrapped it into kind of my interest in government, public service, all of that, and the desire. I think I kind of summed it up something like I always thought I convinced myself that if I gave up because I couldn't win student council, my goal of government or public service or anything where I was going to have setbacks was going to be nothing more than like kind of a first grade dream. So I think that was kind of the point I made was perseverance with goals. Um, Obviously, that's kind of a very specific thing to me. People can't, not a story you can kind of take if it didn't happen to you. But I do think the
Sure.
perseverance aspect of it is was probably what the main takeaway that the admissions officers had. So that I think is something you could write about.
Absolutely.
Um, I wrote about, well, I mentioned before, like my neuroscience research and volunteering with the autism community. Just for some context, my younger brother has autism, so I always grew up very interested in the brain space. And at that time, I was thinking I was pre-med. So I wrote a little bit about my personal experience and then segued into just academic curiosity. And it was specifically about neuroscience, about autism, about research. But I think that the underlying theme of academic curiosity could be obviously applied to anything. And I think that's probably what they liked the most. I think obviously as any school, but at Dartmouth, they really like when people are personally passionate about what they want to study and they can see that there's some like real drive or heart and soul behind it. I also think, and Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought there's a peer recommendation for Dartmouth. Yeah, and I remember I had a friend do that for me. I think it might have been optional, but obviously it's not gonna hurt. And I think that also says a lot about Dartmouth community and how close knit they are that they want a peer recommendation. So would recommend doing that if that's still offered.
Yeah, definitely still offered, optional, but highly, highly recommended. I don't know anyone who has gotten in without a peer recommendation. So shouldn't be a big issue for your application, but that it is kind of something that makes Dartmouth not one of those schools you can apply to on October 31st or December 31st because you're like, oh, I need to throw in an extra app. So do think about that.
That's a really good point. And then that kind of sort of leads us to five, and it puts a bow on it. And then Deborah, like I said, I'm trying to decide whether we should do in the closing statements or before we get the Q&A, if you can give your perspective as a parent. Um, but Jack, Lauren, the kind of the final questions about life after Dartmouth and really life after HW too. You can kind of sort of answer for both institutions. Did you feel, or do you feel that Dartmouth is preparing you for your career and slash your life after Dartmouth? For you, Jack, and for you, Lauren, do you feel that Dartmouth has prepared you for your career and your life after Dartmouth? And then also talk about your HW experience and how that led you going into Dartmouth, and then maybe how both have fed as you move forward.
Yeah, I can take this one. So I've been working a little bit in, I think of just about coming up on the 2 month mark, working post grad. Dartmouth is a liberal arts school. It's not super like career oriented. I'm working like in consulting now. And I didn't take any business classes. There are honestly not a ton of classes on the quantitative side aside from some econ. So in terms of those hard transferable skills, I would say probably not super strong. But I find that a lot of other people are like that from various schools as well. I think Dartmouth really excelled in preparing me in other transferable skills, like the softer skills, like meeting people, time management, learning how to work hard, um, learning how to learn, I suppose, and learning how to write. I think those are all very strong skills that are applicable to anything post grad, and also learning how to be, I think this might sound odd, but humble in collaborating with very, very smart people around you and learning how to just respect your peers and really support each other. It's such an uplifting community, not competitive at all, I would say. Um, so I think those skills are all very transferable. And having gone through job recruitment, like a few times, once for internships over summer and then once for full time, the Dartmouth network is very, very strong. Like when I was doing cold emails, cold reaching out to people over LinkedIn, when now having been working for a bit, I see how it gets so busy. It's easy to kind of dismiss those and not talk to people. But I got so many responses from Dartmouth people. Like people are so happy to help each other and pull younger people through who they don't even know. I think because it's such a tight knit community. And then just on a more personal level, it was just such an awesome group of people. I have amazing friends and such a big network here in New York, like, and all over the US, but I suppose East Coast in particular, um, which I'm so grateful to have now that I'm starting this new chapter.
Yeah, you're pretty much set from Boston to New York. whichever city you want to be in, you're going to have a monster network. I mean, Dartmouth's obviously worldwide too, but particularly in that
Yeah.
corridor, that's where I grew up. It's one of the places you want to be. John?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, completely agree again with pretty much everything Lauren said. I myself am very much kind of on the humanities side of Dartmouth. So I'm a history major and a government modified with economics major, so a double major, a little bit of econ there, but pretty much the kind of humanities. And Dartmouth definitely prepares you very well for that. Um, if you want to go into like hardcore engineering, nuclear science, whatever, probably Dartmouth's probably not the school for you, and that's totally honest. Um, and yet, if you don't, definitely give it a shot. I'd say so. I've done a couple of things. One, I think also just to address the Harvard Westlake portion of the question, Harvard Westlake absolutely, in my opinion, prepared me for Dartmouth. I have found I've been pleasantly surprised, but I can say that in many ways, Dartmouth has been easier than Harvard Westlake. Not in terms of per class work necessarily, or each class, the median grade is higher. That's probably not the case. But you go from 8 classes a day, or well, I guess now they're on the block schedule, but 8 classes a year, class from 8 to 3, tack on whatever sport or extracurricular you're doing, tack on 3 hours of homework. You're lucky if you're not working anytime from 8 a.m. to like 11. That's generous, maybe. At Dartmouth, you've got class like I like if I have class for more than 2 hours a day, it's because I have class on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I don't have class on Thursday and Tuesday. So you have just a ton of extra time um, that is yours to get work done, but also to do all sorts of other things that you don't necessarily get to really do in high school. So I think that's kind of an important thing to point out that Harvard Westlake does prepare you very well in that regard. Um, Additionally, I haven't obviously graduated from Dartmouth yet, so I can't really speak to the whole jobs prospects. But when it comes to finding internships, um, I have done a couple internships in DC on the Hill. The
Nice.
Dartmouth name goes very far, even if you're not using the alumni network. The Dartmouth name itself
Sure.
gets you places. That's whether you like it or not, that's true. And then additionally, as Lauren said, the alumni network is really fantastic. I've been in DC. I've gone to DC, Dartmouth and DC alum events, and those are full with fantastic, interesting people. The former, I think he was Solicitor General, Neil
Mhm.
Cutyall, is a Dartmouth alum. He was down there. He talked to some of us Dartmouth interns down in DC about his role in the executive branch. I'm in London right now, and we just got an email, a very nice, formal email that says the ambassador of the United States of America to the Court of St. James requests the honor of your presence at her residence for a
Nice.
conversation between the Dartmouth History Program and the U.S. ambassador to the U.K., as well as Dartmouth's president. So the alumni network goes all over, even here in the UK, and you are not going to be far from a Dartmouth alum. You are never. I think. Well, I won't say never, but you have a pretty good chance reaching out cold, as Lauren said, reaching out to a Dartmouth alum. You have a very good chance of getting a response, and I don't think you can say the same about any other college in America.
Very cool. Very awesome. Sounds like a varied and unique experience. Deborah, you went through it from a parent's perspective. Take a couple minutes to talk about it, and then we'll open it up to questions and answers to Q&A if there are, and then that'll be it. We'll have made it happen. So please, your insight.
Sure. I think that both what Jack and Lauren have said is quite valuable. And my experience is Dartmouth chose my daughter rather than vice versa. And she also was like, I need a city, I need a city, I need a city. So we were all kind of surprised, although it was one of her top choices. It's an excellent school. And like both Jack and Lauren have said, Dartmouth, and of course, when I first visited, I'm like, oh my God, is this a nunnery? That's really my first impression. And Dartmouth is its own city, and she is thriving there and loves it. Now, granted, school just started September 15th. They're on the quarter system. That seems to be a great plus too. But a lot of her friends at other schools are not having the same experience she's having. And between going to Guile Mountain and seeing the fall foliage and the river, and it's its own city. And I like that the kids, most of them live on campus all 4 years. And it is a community, and she's super happy there. So, I think when people are like, I need a city or I need to be rural, it's a narrow statement because many cities are too large and many rural places are actually a city or you know what I'm trying to say there.
Mhm.
She did say though she was expecting it to be easy because everybody has said once you graduate from Harvard Westlake
Yep.
College is easy.
It's a
She says
very
the
common.
classes are hard. She
Mhm.
does like all the free time. She's in a dance group there already. Amazing. I heard the a cappella group sing. She's not in it, but they're amazing. But she says classes are really hard. She studies a lot. And on that note, all the people around her do the same thing. So, no offense to Harvard Westlake, you got quite the gamut there of who's studied all the time and some that didn't. But here, everybody's seems to be bright, and she I went back for a parents' weekend, and the kids are amazing, and the parents are amazing, and we were super super impressed, and it was the perfect choice. And in terms of her personal statement, I think I dovetail what both of you have said in that if you write about something you love that really resonates with you, because she like spent some time in an Israeli uh, in the Israeli army one summer. And then
Mhm.
she wove that in with something, believe it or not, to do with the tooth fairy and how organized she thought she was. And then it's revelatory that maybe she's not, and maybe she shouldn't be, and maybe experiences new things, which she started to like. So it was sort of a coming of age type of strange fact pattern, but I guess it worked. And she thought she was going to a big city. So it was the opposite for her, but it's been a fantastic experience. We couldn't ask for anything better. And we thought, oh, we won't hear from her much because she's pretty independent. Well, we hear from her more than we thought with just basic pictures of the red and the yellow and the trees and this mountain and this. And I talked to her probably more than when she was here in Los Angeles. So it's
Wow.
been really good. I mean, I think you guys are really lucky. I was really interested in the outplacement. Obviously, it's early, and I did hear the alumni network is good, but I just wondered how both of you experienced it. One of you have graduated, one's still there, but it sounds like both of you are thriving.
It really does. And just, I mean, from the perspective of, East Coast private school, I ended up going to Penn. Like, as I was telling after Jack, like the Boston and DC, that kind of sort of East Coast corridor, like, I mean, it as any other Ivy plus you would think would go as far as opportunities are concerned, which is both a good and a bad thing, depending on how you look at it equity wise. But they're definitely, look at Dartmouth grads a certain way. Aparna, Annika, you've been on the call patiently waiting. We got about 6 minutes left. Do you have any questions? Yes? No?
No questions, but thank you for sharing your experiences. Very interesting for me to hear. Learn.
Perfect. Annika might be on the bus. Annika's so dedicated. Um, if not, we're out of here 5 minutes early, everybody. Look at us valuing your time. Jack, Lauren, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This call was great. Deborah, thank you for hopping on and giving your perspective. Oh, that was a nice surprise. And I think it's always good. And I may even seek it out next year for some of our schools to get that parent perspective. We get obviously the alumni perspective and the current student alumni perspective, but I know this is an interesting journey for you all as parents also, and whatever perspective we can give to those people are great. Lauren, you said your LinkedIn is kind of sort of in the works, but your profile on the platform is good.
Yeah, I have a LinkedIn. I don't know what's happening. I'm having trouble accessing it. I think it might have been locked me out or something. But Works, I'm pretty sure I have one, but I
I
do have
checked it. You
to
were good.
double check.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, you were
awesome.
good. I think you need to update your email address.
Okay, cool.
Um,
We'll do.
Jack, you're good LinkedIn and platform wise.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Works, I think should be fine. My LinkedIn is fine. So shoot me a message there. If you're watching the recording, email me. I guess you can do that through Works. Otherwise, I'm
Yep.
john.m.coleman.26, a lot of dots at dartmouth.edu. But you can email me there, and happy to answer any other questions.
I do have
Fantastic.
one other comment, and that
Uh-huh.
is actually there's a book on the admissions process from Dartmouth. That
Mm,
was the only book I picked up actually, and it wasn't regarding going to Dartmouth, but I thought this lady sounds really funny. And it's called Valedictorians at the Gate. If you've heard of it, it's by Becky Sabke. And
okay.
it's funny and it's broken down by the application process, then this,
Mhm.
and it's a quick read, and she's outstanding, and everybody I've recommended to has really, really liked it. And she did not get into Dartmouth, but I think she did a master's degree there and then was in the admissions department for 10 years.
Oh wow. Okay. What was the name and
It's
title? What was
called
the title and author again?
Valedictorians at the Gate,
Uh-huh.
and I
And the
highly
author again?
recommend it.
The author again?
The author is named Becky, Sabsky, I think. Becky Munster or Sabke or
Okay.
Sabsky or something like that.
Okay. All right. We got that too.
Okay.
Everyone, thank you very much. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks again.